Hi, I'm Geeta Nadkarni, founder of Impact with Influence, and I'm super excited that you've joined us today because this is a much needed conversation in the coaching industry. It's a weird new world out there. It's everything is uncertain. Everything is completely different. Some of us were picking up speed and, in the process of scaling to the next level. Some of us were just getting started. Some of us were like, like what? This was the time that I had decided. I finally made the decision, and then the bottom fell out of the universe. So a lot of us have been dealing with all these emotions that are coming up. And I wanted to have a really frank discussion with you about some of the questions that have been coming up in our private coaching group with our clients in Impact with Influence. And I wanted to share some of the insights that we've been having within our group. And in order to do that, I brought someone on. I'm going to introduce you to her in a second. Michelle Mercurio, who is both a client and is on our core coaching team. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation with Michelle and bring her on to share her opinion and her sort of take on this whole thing is because she has been infusing our group and our team with the most expansive, abundant energy that you could possibly imagine. The second a doubt raises its ugly head, the second someone has fear, Michelle just kind of comes in and waves her magic wand and Michelle's it out of there. And I wanted you to get a taste of this magic. And I particularly wanted to have this conversation with Michelle because it feels like the previous year to where we're at right now, has been preparing her for exactly this moment. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring Michelle on. Hi, Michelle. This is Michelle Mercurio. I'm so excited to have you here. Hey.
Hi, Geeta. Hey, how are you?
I am awesome. So what I want you to do is let's just dive in. Tell us about this past year because it completely pulled the rug out from under your feet, correct?
It did. One of the things that I feel that is so kind of magical, like you were saying right now, is the fact that the whole world is actually going through a very big grieving process. It's a process right now where a lot of things are change, influx, uncertain. There's a lot of fear. And my experience has kind of been that in the past 14 months. I think that maybe the whole reason behind feeling this abundance is because of that. So recently, think about when we actually do the big shifts in our life. Somebody dies, somebody gets sick, somebody has to do a different thing for a career.
Somebody loses their job. Yeah.
They lose their job. And for me personally, my parents both died. My father died. And then 6 months later, unexpectedly, my mom passed. We had some serious illness in our family. And then my grandma passed. And so it was a kind of boom, boom, boom. And so living in that grief process for a really long, extended period of time taught me that the only way to actually handle that and to move through it was to actually feel my feelings and be more of who I actually am.
Exactly. And before we get into the details of how to do that and how we're coaching our clients to do that so that everybody here listening can do it not just for themselves, but bring it to their clients, I wanted to share something really exciting. We're doing a giveaway. So you're going to have to stick around till the end where I'm going to reveal the details of exactly how you can be a part of this giveaway and you can win. So it's a book that I think if there's one book that everybody in the coaching industry, everybody in every industry really, but especially in the coaching industry, specifically coaches and consultants, if there's one book that you should be reading while you're locked down with extra reading time, those of us who are parents to young children. But seriously, if there's one book that you should be reading, this is that book. And I'm going to get into the details. I'm not going to tell you what the book is quite yet, but I will tell you the details of not just what the book is, why I think it's so important, but how you can win a copy that I will have shipped to your address. So without much further ado, I want to get into the details of some of the questions, like probably one of the biggest questions, hey Kala, one of the biggest questions that I've seen come up in our group is, should I be making offers right now? Is it ethical for me to sell coaching at this time? Because coaching is such a luxury, right? Like, shouldn't people be focusing on their groceries? Shouldn't people be focusing on rent? Like, am I doing something wrong by making an offer? What are your thoughts on that?
So one of the things that I keep thinking about is the fact of the matter is if you actually have, so there's a lot of things happening with all of us right now in our businesses. So yes, take care of some of the details. But are you in your life for toilet paper, or are you in your life for transformation? And that's really what it's about. So there's actually no perfect time to do anything. And right now the world feels like it has granted everybody a great big permission slip to either create their new normal or let their new normal happen to them. And my thought on that is create your new normal. Yes, feel the feelings. We don't wish this on anybody. Gita, you even say that. You say, I wouldn't have wished this on this, but it's here. Correct?
And there's nothing wrong with making the best of a situation, no matter how bad the situation is. I think a lot of us struggle with survival guilt. I think a lot of us are in that position of, well, I'm not sick. This is happening to people. Some people are sick. Some people are losing loved ones. Some people are struggling to get groceries and, whatever the deal is. I'm privileged, and I include myself in this, and I've had these very thoughts myself. You almost feel guilty having a good time. You almost feel guilty enjoying the quality time with loved ones. You almost feel guilty having more time to work out or read or sleep or get trained and get deeper into whatever your coaching practice is. And there's no need for that guilt. Part of our job as coaches, part of our purpose in this business, in this world, in this service, is to pull in those negative emotions, weed them out of human consciousness. And the way that I know to do that is to feel the feelings, right? So when I noticed that I had guilt, and I was using a story that felt right for the feeling that I had. So the feeling that I had inside me, and we'll talk about how to process this in a second, but the feeling that I had inside me was guilt. Why was I actually feeling guilty? Lots of reasons. Partly, I'm not affected directly. I'm actually having a really good time. I'm loving the slower pace. I'm loving spending so much time with my kids. I'm loving lots of different aspects of this, even though I wouldn't have chosen it. And so because I had all this guilt, I started thinking, like, you hit that upper limit where you're like, oh my God, can I handle this much abundance? Can I actually enjoy everything, even the bad things? Am I allowed to enjoy this? And because most of us don't know how to give ourselves permission, and it comes back to that word, most of us don't know how to give ourselves permission to actually have abundance, because abundance is enjoying all of it, even the bad shit. You're allowed to enjoy it. Most of us don't know how to do that. Because we don't know how to do that, we need to clamp down and shut that down. And one of the stories that a lot of us use is, I shouldn't be making money right now. I shouldn't be serving others right now. I shouldn't allow my business to grow or prosper during this time. Does this make sense, Michelle? Like, what thoughts come up for you? Is that what you've been seeing too?
It is what I'm seeing, but I think that the flip of this is, it's not an either or proposition. You can't necessarily be one or the other. Just because you're having abundance doesn't mean you don't feel the other feels. You can watch the news. You can be sad. You can feel that grief. You can be happy too. One of the things that people were telling me, when I was going through some of the things in my own family, is there's beauty in grief. It allows us the time to pause and actually say, okay, is this really who I am? Is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really why I'm on this earth? Like, what is it that I'm here for? How am I serving others? How am I showing up? And this is a beautiful space for us to be in too, even though there are moments where there is sadness or fear or angst. You can have both. It doesn't have to be either or.
Exactly. And that makes so much sense. And one of the things that you said, Michelle, on a recent group coaching call for Impact with Influence, that I had goosebumps all over my body because I was like, boom, there it goes. You said, a lot of us are doling out, it's like the whole metaphor of, you have to put your oxygen mask on first and then help somebody who's next to you, because otherwise you'll become a burden to them. You'll pass out and then you won't be able to help anybody. But a lot of us, especially in the coaching industry, where we're wired to help, we're wired to care. It's bigger than us. It's something we've been doing since we were children. We've always wanted to help. You see somebody in pain, you see somebody suffering, you're just like, it's bigger than you. You can't stop yourself. And what is happening sometimes, and what happens sometimes in times of crisis is that our strength, which this very much is, this ability to have empathy, this deep caring, this willingness to help, can turn on us. And I think I'm noticing that there is a little bit, and this is what I call the dark side of helping, and that's because we're doling out all the oxygen masks and we're not breathing. And you said something so profound. You said you have to really ask yourself, are you doling out the oxygen masks because deep down you're kind of hoping to pass out so you can just stop? Mm-hmm. Tell me about why you said that. Where did that come from?
I think that are you doing that from a place where you are over serving or over helping? Because there is such a thing as over helping. And I was having a conversation with someone and she said, my job is to help and my job is to do these things. And I'm running around and I'm doing all of that. But really what she was looking for was the permission to also stop and maybe help save where she is right now. So that way she can do this from a place of true help. So I'm not saying that people aren't offering true help. I'm saying, though, when you think about it, why are you helping? Where is this coming from? And sometimes we overhelp because we don't want to look at ourselves first.
Write that down, guys, in the comments. So somebody put that in the comments so people who are coming back and listening. And if you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay and write that down. This is a question that you want to bring out your journal. Even if you're not a regular journal person, if you're not somebody who writes in a journal every day, this is something that you want to bring out a piece of paper and sit down and kind of brain dump your thoughts on. Is why do I want to help? Where is this empathy? Where is this impulse really coming from? Because if you're not helping, are we helping from the right place? And that's basically where I was going to go next is, are we helping from the right place? Because if we're not helping from the right place, because here's what I've seen a lot of people do, right? It's like, here, everybody's like, oh no, the world is going upside down. People losing their jobs everywhere. Money's drying up. Toilet paper is drying up. Everything's drying up. Right? So there's all this scarcity. So there's a huge boom of like the scarcity energy within human consciousness. And it's very difficult not to pick this up. We are a collective. If everybody else is thinking those scarcity thoughts, it's going to backwash onto us no matter how abundant we are by nature. That's normal. That's great. You know what? Your job is to take that energy and transmute it. That's how you're serving your clients, whether you work with them directly or not. This is a great way for you to serve humanity in general. This is what I believe. So when that scarcity comes up, it's like people are thinking, oh no, everything's drying up. I need to make sales now because soon sales are not going to be available. If you're selling from that place, then I'd be like, that's a bad situation because you're probably going to make decisions that will sabotage your business. You are going to bring on clients that are not the right fit. You are going to bring on clients that mirror that scarcity and desperation. And that's
this is a perfect example of being in it for the toilet paper and not for the transformation.
I love it. Yes.
This is where it is. If you think about that, think about this, Geeta. One of the things that you and I talk about all the time is the fact that if you're making these decisions, you're focused so hardcore on the tactical that you aren't even looking at the big picture. And yes, fear is contagious. But one of the things that we've talked about too is people are still buying things. I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but I've seen some of my friends' Instagram stories, and I've seen bidets showing up on people's doorsteps, and I've seen people investing in themselves. The people who are investing in themselves aren't the ones that are focused on toilet paper. They are focused on creating their new normal, and they're focused on investing in their life and not investing in the end of the world. It's totally different.
I love that. This is it. How would I? So if you wanted a question, sometimes I really believe that when we don't have answers, a lot of the power that we have comes from asking the right questions. How can I invest in changing the world? How can I invest in taking the world where I want to take it, in transforming the world, rather than investing in the end of the world? And wow, just applause. That's just such a great question to ask yourself. So if you don't have to have an answer. That's the beautiful thing. And I think a lot of us don't realize that we have permission to not have an answer. It's okay. We're infinite beings on this continuum of life cycles. This is a blip. It's like not even a drop in the ocean. in terms of actual time. So for you to take a breather and take a break and take 5 days off while you think about it and come up with a real answer, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes if you don't have an answer, it's okay to sit there with a profound question and ask for guidance. And that's what your journaling practice can be. If you don't believe in God and you don't believe in the universe and you don't have that framework, that's fine. Ask yourself, ask your inner wisdom. I mean, you must believe, even if you're an atheist, you must believe that you have inner wisdom, inner intuition. Ask that, right? What you want to do is separate it. There is a real power to this objectification. This is the kind of objectification you should have, where you're separating yourself, your problems, your ego, your drama, miasma, all of that from, okay, there's another side of me, another part of me that has these answers, that has this energy, that has the way. The way is within us always. So that's a really great question, and it helps you to ask that question also to catch yourself when you're having a thought is this thought, if we literally had two jars, and this is an exercise I'm getting some of our clients to do, the ones that are kind of freaking out or shutting down or are depressed, is if you had a jar, two jars, right? You have the power jar and you have the down jar, the up jar and the down jar. Okay. The power jar is the jar where you could put in a slip of paper, you could put in a marble, you could put in a coin to say, I'm doing something that feeds my energy, that brings me up. And the dark jar is I'm doing something that ruins my energy, that brings me down. For some people, that's emotional eating. It could be spending. It could be alcohol. It could be whatever. Everybody has something that they do that just dunks their energy and makes them feel like crap about themselves. So the real question is, which jar are you feeding? And what Michelle just shared is a framework for you to just do the same jar thing with your thoughts. If you have a thought,
if you also do a writing exercise, so plus or minus. So list out the things that you do, put a plus mark next to the things that feed your energy, put a minus sign next to the things that take it away. And if it's neutral, draw a circle or draw a face or a smiley face or something. But, there are things that specifically we can identify to feed our own energies. So where are you investing your time on this?
Exactly. And where are most of your thoughts leading you? Right? Are your thoughts leading you to the end of the world, or are your thoughts leading you to create the new normal? Are you being the change, or are you allowing the change to just be dumped on you, where then you resist it and cry because you're a victim? Right? Both of us, all of us have these choices at all times. It's that dichotomy that we create in our minds. And you can just choose which one you want. And it's okay to pause if that's what you need. So, and that brings me to my next question, which is, what is the first thing that we should give ourselves permission to do if we're feeling overwhelmed? How many of you here, and put in the comments, how many of you here feel overwhelmed, feel indecisive, feel kind of paralyzed because you're not sure? You're like, I would make a decision if I knew what the parameters of this decision were, but nobody knows what the parameters are of any decision anymore. How are you supposed to set goals for the next quarter when you don't know what the frick the next quarter is going to look like? Literally, this has never happened in the world in our lifetime. So now how are you supposed to predict anything or set goals? How many of you are in this place? Tell me in the comments. And by the way, if you're just joining us, please stick around till the end, because I have a book recommendation that you absolutely do not want to miss. I'm actually going to ship a copy of this book to one of you after this broadcast is over, because if there is one book that every coach needs to read during this time of lockdown, it is this book. Okay, and we'll get to that in a second. And it has everything to do with the theme that we're talking about today. So I love this. Karin says, my family and I just bought bikes. And, Michelle, feel free to read some of these comments too. My family and I just bought bikes so we can give ourselves something to do. That is brilliant. And you can there are these stands that you can buy for your bikes that turn your bike into your regular outside bike into a stationary bike. I forget what they're called. There's some term for it. So you can literally take the same bike, go out, bike, and then come in and stationary bike and watch Netflix. And that's a really great way to do it. Gabriel says, one of the shadow sides of the helping or healing archetype is the overcommitted helper. Gabriel is a whiz about archetypes. Or the overcommitted helper, which then attracts the undercommitted client. You can see how those two are, two sides of the same coin, right? Because they fit so beautifully together, which is totally dysfunctional long-term for the helper. And it can become a big problem. So he says Buddhist teacher Roshi Joan Halifax has referred to this as pathological altruism. And in therapy, we often call it codependency. Exactly. The remedy is including yourself within the scope of your care and compassion so you can fill up your cup enough to overflow to those you serve. Pow, right there. That's it. If your cup is not full to overflowing, then your ability to serve others, you're not ready to serve others right now. Does that make sense? And now we'll talk about how you can fill your cup back up. So that's perfect. We're going to just dive right into that. So Michelle, what's the first thing that you think we should give ourselves permission to do if we don't know what the heck to do?
Yeah, I think that we've talked about this a lot of the time, and so many people want to start to act immediately. It's like, oh, I'm going to throw myself into everything and I'm just going to do. The first thing that you actually need to give yourself permission to do is to pause. Mm-hmm. You need to hit the pause button, and you need to take that pause to do some reflection and some processing and to actually feel the things. Earlier in the call, like what we were talking about, is the fact that we are looking, I guess, for, something out there, and we know that people are feeling a certain way. Those feelings aren't going to go away just because we think positive. That's not what this is about. It's not about thinking positive. It's about taking that time to pause and to actually reflect, where am I feeling these things? How am I feeling these things? And then go from that. Does that make sense?
Totally. So step one is, of course, pause. And I think a lot of us are just not giving ourselves permission to do this. I literally had a conversation with 2 separate clients today from our group coaching program where they were like, I have my kids and, my husband's job is still he's still working and we're juggling time between the children and this, that, and the other thing. And I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I just don't have any time to do it. And so what was happening is their kids were freaking out and misbehaving and at each other's throats. They were feeling completely run down. Their husband was exhausted as well. Just everything was kind of falling apart. And why was this happening? Because she felt split. Her angst was not coming from the circumstance. I just want to be real clear about this. The circumstances is whatever. Her angst was coming from the fact that she, no matter what she did, whether she was with her kids, whether she was with her business, whether she was with her husband, whether she was doing whatever it was, she always felt like she should also be doing something else. She should be in a separate place. Was this the right use of her time? Was it not the right use of her time? And because she was constantly in that push-pull, the should, and Carla said we should stop shoulding each other. We should stop shoulding ourselves. Exactly. So true. And this is Michelle. This is one of your Michelle-isms as well.
Yes. Stop shitting all over yourself because it's
shitting all over yourself.
It's just going to make a big old mess.
We should just make T-shirts, honestly. But anyway, because you're doing that, you're not present anywhere. You're not here. You're not really in your past. And you're not really in your future. And that's why you're feeling disembodied and overwhelmed. And it feels awful, and it will completely jack up your nervous system. So you want to help the COVID movement and you want to do yourself a solid and do the rest of humanity a solid, get your nervous system in order, okay? And the first thing you want to do when you feel like you're all over the place is stop and be in one place. One place.
Because I really want somebody to drop into the comments and say, how many of you have made the best decision of your life from a place of complete and utter chaos?
Sound of cricket.
Wait, I'm kind of raising my hand, and that's not true, right? I have made some interesting decisions from places of chaos
that end up paying off in the long term.
Right,
yeah.
And moments of chaos have actually served me very, very well. But if you are making a decision from a place of chaos and you haven't taken that time to pause, it is probably not going to be 100% your best decision. And I think that pause, when you make decisions from a place of calm, while surrounded by chaos, your decisions are totally different. And where it is that you go to.
Amen to that. And and as emotion goes up, intelligence goes down, Carla says. And that's true. Unless the emotion is joy, unless that emotion is gratitude, then it actually expands your intelligence. But if you have negative emotions running your brain, there's not a lot of room for the highest parts of you to play. There's no room at the table for that. So I noticed that when my energy is fractured like that, this is a very practical thing. You have a body, use it. right? Your body is a very good it's like your analysis meter for what your silly brain might be doing without you got sucked into your ego's game. Great, check in with your body. Your body is your truth serum here. So what I do is I say, oh, if I'm feeling fractured and my energy is all over the place and I'm feeling snappy with my kids and I'm, wanting to check my Slack notifications or whatever the deal is, then I stop, I put my electronics down and I'm like, I'm going to be where my feet are. My feet are right here. So right now, my feet are with you. They're right here. They're on my office floor. I'm looking in the camera. I'm talking to you. In another moment, I might be standing in my kitchen and I'm like, I'm in my kitchen right now. I'm here. I'm safe. Nothing bad is happening. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm in one place. I'm in one moment. Now I can own this moment. And that energy starts to then expand outwards. And what I've realized is that when you're in this fractured place and you're in a place of overwhelm, your kids are actually going to act up more because they're competing with everything else that's going on in your mind. They're going to bite and hit and push and whatever each other because the other kid is the stand-in for all the crap in your mind that's sucking up your attention. He can't hit that, so he's going to hit his sister. That's what typically will happen. Does that mean you have to give yourself to your kids 100%? No, but I think that what you have to do is create those buckets where during this time, I'm 100% with my kids. All notifications are turned off, electronics are put away. I'm fully immersed in whatever experience we're co-creating. And then I say, okay, love, now it's time for mama to work. The more I'm with them during their time, the more tolerant they are of me not being with them when it's not their time. And this has to be built. The first time you do it, it's not going to work, especially if you've had a habit of not being in one place at the same time for a long time. You're going to have to build the trust. It's going to take 5 or 6 or 7 days. Give yourself, I always like to give myself 2 weeks. It never takes 2 weeks, but if I give myself 2 weeks, then I'm battened down for the process and I usually have enough time for it to work. So that's how I always do everything. It's like, we're making a change, give us 2 weeks. 2 weeks to do it consistently.
And my mantra is always be here now. And I know that phrase gets thrown around, but when you actually break it down, so just be. You're not doing, you're not thinking, you're not acting, you're not moving, be. Okay, here, where are you? You are here. You are in this moment. You are looking at the camera, like you said. You're talking to your people. You're seeing the comments. You're here. And it's now. It's not a week ago. It's not a week from now. It's not 5 years from now. A lot of the anxiety that people are feeling, it's because of the what ifs.
Yes.
And a lot of the fears that are coming up, it's because you are trying to rationalize every possible scenario and 10 more that you haven't even thought of yet.
And you're trying to control things that are absolutely impossible for anybody, let alone you alone, to control. Right. You're projecting a scenario that's not real, that you have no control over, that you can't possibly predict. And then you're trying to manage the emotions you will have at that moment and the emotions of everybody around you and all the decisions they will make that will affect the decisions that you will make. If this doesn't sound familiar, you're either very zen or lying to yourself. It's like one of those two. And I hope it's the former. And that's the goal, right? So most of us have done some version of this, and hopefully we've caught ourselves in that moment and been like, wait a minute. I'm trying to do shit that this is all worst case scenario and none of this is real. None of it is real. It's all an illusion. So that's the beautiful thing, is that your worst case scenario is not real. So what we want you to do is, step one is pause. And that pause may take longer than you would prefer. So let's just put that on the table too. How many type A people here? Anyone? We're all type A's. We attract type A's because that's who we are, right? So very driven, super hardworking, ridiculously ambitious. Raise your hand. Anyone in the comments? Let me know, especially if you're watching the replay so I can get to know you. Okay, so type A people tend to be a little teeny bit impatient, right? So because we're impatient, we're just like, okay, I paused. Fuck, Michelle, it's not working. Tap, 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 right? Like, it's like,
but I've been at this pause. I have been doing this pause right now for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 days.
22 seconds. At least 22 seconds. Yeah. Right, I know. Yeah. It's bad. Yeah. Sometimes it can take days. Yeah. During that pause, it's a good idea, once you're done, once you've brought your energy back to where you're at, That's good. Now you can move on to step 2, which is reflect. You reflect, which means you think about it. You ask some of the questions that we've brought up during this. And if you miss some of those questions, go back and re-listen to this live, re-listen to this video so that you can take down the questions that we asked and journal on them. That we're not making this up. This is literally what our paying clients are doing with us right now. And it is changing not just their lives, but the lives of everybody that they coach. Because every tool that you use to better yourself and fill up your cup to overflowing is going to affect all of the people that you work with. So think about every question that we've just given you, and every piece of this process that we've given you not only applies to yourself, but feel free to use it with your clients. Expand your toolkit as a coach. Bring this into your own practice, because all of your clients, I can promise you, if you're going through something and you're feeling all these feelings, they are too. And if you can shift them in yourself, that opens up your lexicon and your toolkit to then bring that shift to them. So step 1 is pause. Step 2 is reflect. Journal. If you've never been a journaling person before, now is a great time to start. You don't like to journal? Talk into a dictaphone. Talk into your phone. You have a voice recording app? Just talk. You don't want to record something? I think recording is really helpful because it makes it real, because when you listen to it again, you're just like, wait, I already knew that. I can't tell you the number of times I have journaled something and without realizing it. And then I will go back and reread something from months ago. And this brand new idea that I'm super excited about today is something that I had already written about months, sometimes even years ago, literally verbatim with the names and everything already in place. And I'm like, I thought this was a new idea. No, I already had that idea ages ago. So it really helps to kind of realize that your 2 pieces, you're the ego, which is the small s self, all the, that's got up in the worries and the bills and all of the day-to-day stuff. And then you're the big S self as well. And having a journaling practice, at least for me, and, Michelle, you've got a whole bunch of practices that you do and you do with your clients as well and do with our clients. I find that this helps create space between those two. And a lot of the really great, juicy stuff in life happens in that middle space between the big S self and the small S self. So pause, reflect, and process. So let's talk about step 3, which is process.
I really want to just go back really super fast.
Sure.
The act of writing has been scientifically proven to actually help your brain process. So it's kind of that reflect piece as you're writing. It actually flows right into step 3, processing. Because the physical act of writing something, like with a pen or even on a keyboard, changes how your brain is processing that information. So it does, journaling, or even, like you said, talking into the phone, actually taking that time to reflect. You have to do that before you start the process. So let's talk about number 3. So what is process about for you, Geeta?
So for me, it's about kind of sifting out. So often when you have a lot of negative emotion, it's what I like to call a spaghetti mess. It's like all the different tendrils of the thoughts, they're all woven together and they make this like big scary thing. And you're just like, I can't deal with this. I don't know. Right. And so for me, the process of processing is just to separate the tendrils. Right. It's just to be like, oh, what am I actually worried about? How often do we take the time when we're all like, oh, like all head up and anxious and tight and contracted? How often do we actually take the time to be like, what is really bothering me here? And I can tell you this, if you practice this one thing, whether you have a journal or not, if you just, the journaling is usually the first step to making this a habit. And then over time, this is going to be just something that you do in the moment. Now I'm able to do it in the moment. So if Pat says something to me and I don't, my husband says something to me and I don't like his tone, or it's like, I feel triggered, I'm like, okay, what's my problem? Now it's become more of a habit where I'm like, what's my problem? What is the thing that's bothering me here? And then when I know what's bothering me, I can sometimes see what a bullshit lie I'm telling myself in the moment, which is, I don't know, approximately 8 times out of 10, where you've gotten caught in some total BS that's not true. And now you're projecting your angst onto your family or your whoever it is that's in your...
I don't think any of us are guilty of that, are we?
No, of course not. This only happens to me. And the other 2 times it's like, oh no, I have this really valid concern that I have where I'm just like, I feel taken for granted. I feel like I'm not being recognized, or it's all ego play. Don't get me wrong. It's all ego and none of it's true anyway. But it's like, oh, I'm feeling hurt. And then I look under. So if I'm taking for granted, then under that I look for, okay, I'm feeling hurt. And then I'll be like, I'm sad right now. And now that I'm able to connect to, I'm sad, then I can just turn to Pat and be like, I need a hug. I don't feel connected to you. And now instead of telling him his tone was off or any of the other crap that I would have done in the past, that would have then escalated the situation to be like, what do you mean my tone was off? And then I try to convince him that he's wrong, and he tries to convince me that I'm wrong, and everybody's trying to convince each other that the other person is wrong. I'm just like, no, I'm sad. I don't know what to do with this. I need help. And then like it creates closeness and connection rather than distance. So that's what process means to me in this particular context. It's separating. This is probably the best way to explain it. It's separating the story, which is whatever the contextual issue is, Pat's tone or whatever the deal is, separating the story from the emotion that it triggers. I have learned it is very, very important to stop buying the story. The story is the only purpose of that story is to trigger. Once you are already triggered, you're like, okay, I'm already feeling the emotion. What's the emotion? Then I have permission to just feel it. I don't have to repress it. I don't have to suppress it. I don't have to pretend it's not there. I'm a classic. I used to be such a great fear suppressor. OMG. I was terrified all the time because I was doing these huge, ambitious things that everybody was like, what are you out of your mind? You can't pull that off. And then I was terrified that they might be right. And so because I had these huge, ambitious projects that I was working on, I was terrified a lot and I didn't know how to process them. And so I would create situations over and over that would trigger sadness and guilt and fear and all of the things that I didn't know how to process. Now I just process them. I'm like, I'm sad. I will feel sad. I don't need a story to feel sad. You don't need the world to be on a pandemic break to feel sad or fear or overwhelm or anything. You can just feel all those things and it's okay. And you know what? You can also feel joy and gratitude and love and connection and relief and anything else that you might feel. It is all allowed. And if you can just sit with it, and I'm going to do a whole other video on how to process. How many of you here feel like you have a really good handle on processing your emotions? You have a good process for processing. How many of you either say yes, I do, or no, I would love to learn? Because I think I definitely did not have that. I did not know. I was great at being happy, positive affirmations person, and was very, very bad at, that was like a whole half of me that was just unacknowledged and in the basement and just hidden. And because I had that secret from myself, not from anybody else, but from myself, it created distance between me and everybody around me, including my close family. Does this make sense? So Teresa says, separating the story from the emotions it triggers, aha moment. Yes, exactly. I love that. Rosa's also enjoying this. Yeah, this has been how I experienced this. Michelle, and this is the work that we do with our clients. Like, we actually teach you this. We do this process with you guided in one-on-one mindset sessions. This is what changes people's lives, because if you know how to do this, all the business stuff often takes care of itself. Does that make sense?
The things that people come to us with problems for all the time, whether, it's they think they have one problem, but it's not that problem. It's truly about how to process it. And, we see a lot of different things on social media. We see a lot of different things like, oh, just meditate or just do this or, take a breath. And yeah, I say these things too. But there has to be a process behind in order to do the process, right? Like you have to be able to do those things. And so often we stay very surface level with what that is. And we just keep telling ourselves the same story, or we try to think our way out of the story. And I think what you brought up about feeling and actually just feeling the feeling, that is a totally different way that many people don't even shift into, because they're trying to restory the story before they feel it. And this is something that we talked about in one of our calls too. It's like you're trying to write messaging around it, or you're trying to change the story, but you haven't even felt what the old story is doing to you yet. You cannot do that until you actually feel the feels that are within you.
Exactly. Because otherwise you're always playing at the surface, because you're too terrified to go inside, because that's the basement, right? That's where everything's hidden. So you're like, no. We're pretending that doesn't even exist. This house only has 2 floors. That floor is not acknowledged, right? And then you're just like, well, why does everybody not connect with me deeply? I'm like, your deep is cordoned off. That deep, you're not allowing anyone to swim in your deep. You don't even swim in your deep.
You don't even want to go into your own deep water, because people know where their deep water is. They don't even want to look at where that is for themselves. And they definitely don't want somebody else to see it.
No.
They know where it is, and they're just hoping of all hopes that you never see what that really is for them.
And you know what the other side of this is that if you can lift that cordon, if you can go and swim with whatever sharks you think are lurking in your deep, you will realize that those sharks are your bodyguards. They're here to serve you. They're here as a part of you. They're not to be feared. They're not here to hurt you. They're not here to take away what you've built. It's none of those things. Those are all illusions. And when you can open that cordon off and everybody else is invited to swim in that, the connection, the joy, the depth of the work, if any of you have ever run a business, and I've certainly done this myself, you've run a business where at some point, like the business is rolling, you're kind of successful, you're quasi-successful, like you've hit all the metrics, but it feels like you've outgrown it. It feels like a shell. It feels like it's not what you were going for. And now you want to quit this job, even though you created this job. I've definitely lived this cycle. And we no longer live this, neither Michelle nor I live the cycle anymore. And this is what we help our clients create, is a business that will never bore you, a business that will always nourish you. And it's because the entire business is built behind the cordon. It's built in the deep. And that's why it pulls people in at a completely different level. And that's why our clients are able to charge what they charge. That's why our clients are able to have the connection and the messaging that they have, is because it really has everything to do with this emotional processing. So I'm seeing a lot of help, a lot of people asking for help with their emotional processing. And Karen, who's one of our clients, actually says, that was me 100%. Yeah. And like, look at her business. Like, it has totally taken off. You have your own freaking TV show in the works. I mean, this is amazing. And this is where it comes from. So, I'm going to get Pat to put up a board that basically breaks down what we're talking about into the 4 steps. So there is pause, right, Michelle? And after that comes reflect. And then process. And then and only then do you go into the first place that most type A people like to go, which is into action. This is now when you have time to proceed. Because now you're going to be proceeding from a completely different emotional landscape. You're going to be proceeding from a place of sureness, even in uncertain times. Yes, even in uncertain times, you will know what you are meant to do. You will proceed from a place of deep gratitude and certainty. And if you're not going from that place, then it's because you've skipped one of the previous steps. You have not spent enough time in one of the previous steps. Does that make sense? So if you're in proceed, you're like, I'm taking action. I just bought this course. I'm trying to do this tactic. I'm trying to do this, but it's not working for me. If that's where you're at, it's because you have skipped over one of the, reflect or pause or process. Like you've skipped one of them, or you haven't done it adequately. You haven't allowed yourself the time that you need to get to that place of peace. And again, like I know you have a deeply embedded impatience in you, and I recognize it because God knows I have it too. But any minute that you spend processing an emotion that needs to be dealt with, you will get 1,000 minutes back when you finally spring into action, because your actions will be so aligned and so effective. So anybody who has spun their wheels doing a whole bunch of bullshit actions, or not knowing what to do, or like having all the things and knowing all the steps, but just not having the energy to go forward, this, just like literally write this out, take a screenshot on your phone, make it your screensaver. Make it your screensaver. Put it somewhere where you cannot avoid it, so that until it becomes second nature, you are going to have to deliberately and intentionally practice it. Does that make sense? Help, damsel in distress, says Terry-Ann, right? So ask yourself, what is the underlying emotion that is making me take this action? And Michelle, you can talk about that a little bit, right? Like a lot of times people make that from fear or scarcity. It's like, I need to do this or I will not have to make money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm seeing that right now from everybody. How many of you have opened up some of your social media accounts and all of a sudden you've seen a bunch of panicked people, right, showing up in their social media, trying to do a different offer or something new, or throwing something again at the wall to see what sticks. And that is not a sustainable business. That is a fear-based pivot and a fear-based shift that is not sustainable. That is exactly like right at the beginning when we were talking about putting on your oxygen mask. That is the fastest way to pass out, right?
Yes.
Because you are just over delivering and you're overdoing, and you're starting with the procedure, or like the proceeding.
The proceeding, the action,
the action, and not with the pause or the reflect or the process. And I know so many people will say, I can't start with that. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't know about you. Personally and professionally, how many times have any of you actually said that? I can't start from there because I don't have time. I'm out of time. Time isn't real, people, but it is. It might feel like it's real, but it's really not real. If you don't have time, that is exactly when you better pause now. Like if you are saying, I don't have time, you better, that's the only thing you do.
Yeah.
Because if you're just acting, you're going to miss it all. You're going to mess it up.
Saying that you don't have time and not pausing is a little bit like saying, well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible, right? Or saying I can't have a shower because I'm dirty.
Right, exactly.
That's when you need it the most.
That's when you need it the most. And this is the whole point of that. You cannot proceed and you can't just do, because what you're going to do is you're going to actually make actions out of fear, out of scarcity, out of lack, like lacking something. And that's exactly what you're going to attract to you.
Exactly. And because you have that feeling of not enough time. So what I see is people will put out all these offers, right? Like the new offer, the free offer, the 5-day challenge, the this, the that, the whatever. And what it does is it keeps them busy. So it distracts them from feeling the feelings that they're having. So in that sense, it does its job, right? It is a distraction, an illusion. So you go into motion and you exhaust yourself. There's a cost to it too. You're not spending this time with your family. You're not spending this time on your health. You're not spending this time with your partner, deepening connection. You're in this like constant tizzy of like disconnection and disembodiment. And then you get to a confirmation of exactly what you were feeling before, which is I don't have enough time, nobody's going to buy, or whatever the impulse is that made you take the action in the first place. Nobody's going to buy, there's not enough money. Whatever that impulse is that made you take that action, if it came from there, you're going to get to the end of the cycle of action and you're going to find yourself exactly there. We see it all day. All day.
I saw it on Monday. I talked to somebody and she said she dropped her prices in order to sell some things. And now she said the people that are attracted to her are the same people that she was already selling to at a higher price point. Now they're getting a deal and now she's burnt out and now she's missed all this time with her family. And she's missed out on actually getting the money that she wanted to have, which they would have bought from her anyway, because she undercut, because she started with the proceed rather than the pause.
Exactly. And, Karen's here, and, Karen's one of our clients. She's, I think, give us a shout out if you're still here watching this, Karen. But she was talking about, so she has a program that she was selling, and she's the vegan Cupid, okay? So she helps vegetarians and vegans find love, and she has this high-end matchmaking service where she literally matchmakes one-on-one, and then she has a program, a course that she gets, vegan and vegetarian folks into to help them heal whatever their block is to love, and then she has this database where she helps them find other vegans or vegetarians that are the right fit for them. So it's like a very interesting, unusual, unique, global service. It includes the introductions and the mixers, and she's doing all of this virtually, by the way, which is amazing. So she's been picked up. She's working on having her own TV show. Fox News just interviewed her. She's got like 3 other interviews lying around. Yeah, there she is. And she was talking about how she was like, well, I made an offer for my program and no one's buying, and I think maybe the price point is too high. That was her first, because that was what was triggered in her. And Karen, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. All of us have some version of this that we do. Okay, I've done it in my past, which is how I know to recognize it. And when we walked her through what she was doing to make that offer, we realized it was not the price point that was broken. It was not the program that was broken. It was not the client base that was broken. It was simply the process by which she was offering it. She was so worried that it was not going to work that she created a process that wouldn't work. And when we helped her see that, we helped her tweak the process. And now do you see what I mean? Like she would have changed her pricing. She would have changed her client base. She would have undercut herself, done exactly what Michelle's client, what Michelle was talking about with her client. And that would have completely fucked things up. And think about it. We're going to come out of COVID at some point, right? Now you'll have set all these expectations in the interim as well. You'll have gone and done a whole bunch of things that have set up your client's understanding of who you are and how you show up and what you really do in this particular way. You just want to make sure that all of it is aligned with who you want to grow up to be after COVID is done. Does that make sense? So I'm not, and again, this is not like me saying, oh, no, you cannot change pricing at all. I'm not saying anything globally. I'm just saying that where you're changing your pricing, whatever emotion is guiding you to change your pricing, examine it. Be very careful that it's coming from the right place. Because if it is coming from the right place, it will feed your business. When you come out of COVID and you raise your prices again, assuming you lower them now, if you've lowered them from the right understanding, with the right intentions, with the right fit, your clients will follow you back up when the pricing goes back up. So I'm not saying that lowering your pricing is globally the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying be careful what the emotion is that's driving your actions. If you're raising your pricing, same thing. 1 or 2 sales here might actually blow up your long-term longevity in your business if you're raising your pricing from a place of profiteering, or because you're scared that there's not enough money, or that you can only make sales right now and then things are going to dry up. So all this, it's worth reflecting on. So this is a really good time for you to sit and, again, screenshot, go back in this, rewind this video when it's done, screenshot the 4 steps, practice the 4 steps. This is a practice. This is a process. If you don't do the process, it does not work for you. If you do it once, it's not going to suddenly take. If you shift things with your kids and pay attention to them today, don't expect them to suddenly change, because you've been ignoring them for the last 3 weeks, right? So now in one day, you're not going to heal all of that. But give it 2 weeks, and I promise you, it will be different. I've done it. I've done it personally. So I know it. We've helped so many of our clients do exactly this. So does this make sense? So this brings me to the time where we are going to tell you what the book is. I'm really excited. Okay, so this is one of the best books that I have read in a very long time. And I read a lot. I read a lot of personal development stuff. And what I want to share with you is a book called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. If you don't already have it, you must get it. And I would like to give one of you this book for free. Okay, so I will ship it to your door. We will choose a winner in the next 48 hours. So what are we today? We're Wednesday. By end of day Friday, by 5 p.m. Friday, we will announce the winner. So we will ship you a copy of BJ Fogg's book, Tiny Habits. This guy is a researcher, Stanford researcher on the subject of human behavior. And if you're a coach, if you're interested in bettering your own habits or helping your clients better their habits, so think about, there's money to be made here, there is lives to be changed here, everything is in deep alignment. You need this book. You need to study it. You need to implement it. So in order for you to win, here's what I want you to do. I want you to pop in the comments one habit that you're trying to build and you can do both, one habit that you're trying to break. Okay, so a habit that you're trying to build or a habit that you're trying to break. So tell me what those are in the comments, and then on Friday before around 5 o'clock Eastern, we will pick a winner and I will announce it here in the group, and then we will get in touch with you so we can get your address so we can ship you the book. So pick me, please, Carla. Carla, that's not fair. Carla is one of our clients, and we absolutely love her because she's so freaking hilarious and she makes all of us laugh. So Michelle, do you have any last words about this entire, just to sum up this whole idea of permission to proceed?
Yeah, I think that the only thing that I would just want to leave everybody with is this. If you currently are feeling all of the things, all of the chaos, all of even some of the good things, all of the joy, I want you to take that pause. The permission to actually proceed and the permission to do your business as you wish and your life as you wish. All of that is in your hand right now. and it's right in front of you. And all you have to do is make that choice. You just have to decide. And if you make that decision to do that, then follow that process. Take that pause. Reflect on where you are. Do that first. Because even if what happens is we get to this idea of everything's in a pandemic and it's pandemonium and chaos. So if you're acting from that, the rest of your life is going to be like that. Now is your time.
It's going to be toilet paper.
Yeah, it's going to be toilet paper, and it's not going to be transformation. So if you are feeling so angsty and like ready to act, this is your invitation to sit or stand where you are and take that break. Don't act first. Act last.
Act last. Exactly. I love that. And what will happen is, again, the reason that we chose the Habits book to give away, partly because I absolutely love it. You should see my copy. It's like dog-eared, it's underlined, it's bristling with Post-its. I've been incorporating a lot of this into our coaching practice as well. The reason that we chose this one is because it comes back to something I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, which is we talked about the 2 jars. This comes from the parable of, this is a Native American parable, I believe, which is a little boy, turns to the father and he says, okay, there are these 2 wolves. The father says there are these 2 wolves, and only one, like there's the black wolf that's like fierce and that will eat you, and then there's the white wolf that's good. And the little boy says, well, which wolf, if the 2 wolves were to fight each other, which wolf would win? And the father said, it's the wolf that you feed. And that goes back to the 2 jars that I talked about, right? The habits that you cultivate during this time of pause, during when everything business as usual has been interrupted, there is a disruption, which is amazing. It's a huge gift if you look at it that way. So you can take this and you can say, okay, my life was kind of I was poodling along at whatever speed I was going at, and I had this particular direction I had picked, and now all bets are off. So I can actually stop and say, is that still where I really want to go? Is that what I want to do? Is this how I'm going to do it? Is this day to day serving me? Is it nourishing me so that I have, the more I do it, the more energy it gives me? Or is it something that depletes me the more I do it? If it's depleting you, you need to change your habits. It's as simple as that. And that's why sometimes having a visual, like people can be what doesn't work in your head can sometimes work when it's out of your head, which is why we're like, journal, put it outside yourself, have 2 jars. Exactly, right? Have 2 jars. Or have this process of like, you write down your thoughts and give yourself like a plus or a minus, like Michelle said. It's like all your positive thoughts and how many thoughts that take you towards the end of the world, and how many thoughts that take you towards transformation, being the change. Or how many habits do you have that are nourishing you right now, that are building you up to be someone you want to grow up to be, versus how many habits. A lot of people have self-care, and that's a whole other video that I want to do. Self-care that is really self-escape. That just knocks your energy down instead of building you up. Okay, so examine those habits. And then that way, and this book is absolutely going to change your life. It literally says that. There's a little flap when you buy the book and it shows up. It says, this book will change your life. And I was like, big claim. But you know what? He's right. It absolutely will. It is the best. I've read every book there is on habits. Literally every book. I've read the James Clear book. I've read all of the other books. There's another one called Mini Habits. I've read them all. This one comes at it from so many different angles that, again, if you're a coach and you're into this thing and you geek out like I do about human behavior, you need this book. And I'm super excited to ship it to one of you. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. If this has been valuable to you, here's what I want you to do. I know you're putting right now, you're all like getting in there with what one habit you want to change and one habit you want to break. And as many entries as you make, I will give you that many entries when we do our draw. The second thing I was going to say is put your biggest aha in the comments. And I want you to do that for the same reason, Michelle talked about, you talked about when somebody writes something down, right? That
it imprints it into your memory and it changes the way you think about it. It actually starts the help to process it.
Exactly. So if you want to learn to process things, then write them down. Start here. Put it in the group. Put it in the comment section. That means A, you're going to be able to come back and reference it. B, you're going to help somebody else have the same aha that you did. this is all about paying into the collective, right? If you want to take out from the collective, you got to pay into it. And this is how we help each other evolve faster. So if you put your aha out, somebody else will be able to build upon it and share their corollary aha to it and be like, oh my God, I thought about this. And you know what? This other thing, this other aspect of it. And that's going to like whoosh, expand your understanding of whatever it is that you need to shift, and vice versa. And you're going to give this gift to somebody else. So please put your biggest aha from this live in the comments section. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you, Michelle, for coming and seeing us. I'm going to have Michelle back in a couple more weeks to talk about how to make difficult decisions in your business, because most of us are going to have to make some, at least, during this period. And this is a conversation that our leadership team is having. So we're going to be back to talk about that. Hopefully you will join us. If you have friends who are in the coaching industry, especially in the premium coaching space, who are wanting to grow and scale thriving businesses, especially during this time, please invite them to join this group. Send them a note. Don't just add them to the group because they're going to be like, what the heck am I doing here? Send them an invitation. Tell them why you'd like them to join this group. Forward them if you're on my email list and I've got an invitation or a summary of this live, forward them that email so that they can join the group so that we can all grow together. Thank you so much. Thanks, Michelle.